The gallery encounter. The Seattle rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Meridian Gallery as distinguished guests sipped champagne and admired the evening's featured collection. Sebastian Blackwood adjusted his midnight blue suit jacket, his emerald eyes scanning the crowd with practiced ease. At 30, he had built a reputation as one of the city's most exclusive gallery owners, though few knew the true source of his impeccable eye for art. "Another successful opening, Mr. Blackwood," his assistant whispered as she approached with updates on sales. Several pieces had already been purchased by private collectors, their provenance as carefully curated as the wine selection. Sebastian nodded absently, his attention caught by a woman standing apart from the main crowd. She wore a simple forest green dress that complemented her dark hair, pulled back in a loose bun. Unlike the other guests who moved through the space with calculated, social grace, she studied each painting with genuine curiosity, occasionally pulling out a small notebook to jot down observations. "Excuse me," Sebastian said to his assistant, drawn toward this intriguing stranger. The woman was examining a particularly striking seascape when Sebastian approached. The painting depicted an underwater coral reef, vibrant with life yet somehow melancholic in its beauty. "Fascinating choice," Sebastian said softly. "Most people gravitate toward the portraits tonight." She turned, revealing warm brown eyes and a face free of the heavy makeup favored by his usual clientele. "I'm sorry. I know I don't really fit in here. My roommate insisted I come. She said I needed to get out more and appreciate culture beyond my microscope." She laughed nervously. "I'm Natalie, by the way, Natalie Chen, Sebastian Blackwood, and you belong here as much as anyone." He gestured toward the seascape. "What drew you to this particular piece?" Natalie's eyes lit up with passion. "The artist captured something most people miss about coral reefs. Everyone sees the bright colors and thinks paradise, but look closely at the details. There's a story of survival here. Adaptation, hidden threats. The reef is beautiful, but it's also fighting for its life every day." Sebastian found himself genuinely intrigued. "You speak like someone who knows reefs intimately." "Marine biologist," Natalie explained, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I study coral ecosystem recovery off the Washington coast." "Not exactly. Cocktail party conversation." "I think you'd be surprised what makes for good conversation," Sebastian replied, his usual polished charm replaced by authentic interest. "Would you like to see something special? I have a private collection upstairs." Before Natalie could respond, Sebastian's phone buzzed urgently. The message made his blood run cold. "Enjoying your little gallery party, Ghost? We need to discuss your outstanding debts. 7 years in federal prison gives a man time to plan. DV." Sebastian's hand trembled almost imperceptibly as he deleted the message. Dmitry Volkov, his former partner supposed to be safely locked away for another decade, somehow had access to communication again. "Sebastian, are you all right?" Natalie's voice seemed to come from far away. "Yes, sorry. Work never stops, I'm afraid." He forced his practiced smile back into place. "Would you join me for dinner tomorrow night? I'd love to continue our conversation about coral reefs and hidden stories." Natalie hesitated, glancing down at her simple dress, so different from the designer gowns surrounding them. "I don't really move in these circles, Sebastian. I drive a 10-year-old Honda and live in a studio apartment above a bookstore." "Then let me show you a side of the city that has nothing to do with circles or status," Sebastian said, meaning every word despite the growing dread in his chest. "Just two people who find art in unexpected places." As Natalie smiled and agreed, to meet him tomorrow, Sebastian's phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo. Natalie entering the gallery earlier that evening, taken from across the street. The message read, "She's lovely. I look forward to meeting her soon." Sebastian's world tilted. Dmitri wasn't just back in communication, he was having Sebastian watched. And now this brilliant, innocent woman who made his carefully controlled world feel suddenly bright had unknowingly stepped into a game where the stakes were measured in lives rather than money. As the gallery evening wound down and guests began to leave, Sebastian watched Natalie gather her small purse and notebook. She waved goodbye with genuine warmth, having no idea that her name was now written in the ledger of Sebastian's dangerous past. Standing alone among his carefully curated collection of beautiful lies, Sebastian realized that for the first time, in 7 years, he had something worth protecting, and something that could be taken away. Part 2. The Ocean's Secret. The waterfront restaurant Sebastian chose for their second date overlooked Elliott Bay, where ferries glided across the dark. Water like illuminated dreams. Natalie had traded her simple gallery dress for jeans and a cream sweater, looking more relaxed and radiant than Sebastian had imagined possible. "I still can't believe you chose this place over some expensive establishment," Natalie said, sipping her wine as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. "Most wealthy collectors I've met prefer to display their status." "Wealth means nothing without authenticity," Sebastian replied, though his words carried weight. She couldn't understand. "Besides, you mentioned loving the water. I wanted to see you in your element." As Natalie shared stories about her research diving expeditions, Sebastian found himself captivated by her passion. She described underwater caves filled with bioluminescent creatures, coral gardens that took decades to grow, and the delicate balance that kept entire ecosystems alive. Her enthusiasm was infectious, genuine in a way that made Sebastian's carefully constructed world feel hollow. "What about you?" Natalie asked, leaning forward with interest. "How did you develop such an eye for art?" "That gallery collection is extraordinary." Sebastian's smile faltered slightly. "Family business, you might say. My father was a collector. I learned early that every piece has a story, though not all stories are meant to be told." His phone buzzed insistently. Another message from an unknown number. Such a romantic setting. Dr. Patricia Chen would be proud to see her daughter dining with Seattle's most exclusive art dealer. "Give my regards to Natalie's mother when you visit the research facility tomorrow." Sebastian's blood turned to ice. Dmitri knew about Natalie's mother, knew about her work schedule, even knew about tomorrow's planned tour of the marine research facility. The message included a photo of Dr. Patricia Chen leaving the medical research building where she worked on breakthrough treatments for ocean-related toxins. "Sebastian? You look pale." Natalie reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand with concern. "Just work complications," he lied, deleting the message quickly. "Nothing that can't wait." The next morning, Sebastian arrived at the Pacific Marine Research Institute with a bouquet of sea glass flowers he'd commissioned from a local artist. Natalie met him at the entrance, her face glowing with excitement to share her world with him. "This is incredible," Sebastian said as they walked through laboratories filled with tanks of colorful coral specimens. "It's like an underwater garden." Natalie guided him through her research areas, explaining how coral polyps formed colonies, how rising ocean temperatures threatened entire reef systems, and how her team was developing resilient coral strains. Sebastian listened with genuine fascination, temporarily forgetting the danger that surrounded them both. "Dr. Chen, your visitor seems genuinely interested," Captain Torres, Natalie's supervisor, observed as they concluded the tour. "Most donors just want their names on plaques." "Donor?" Sebastian questioned, confusion flickering across his features. "The anonymous benefactor who's been funding our coral restoration project," Torres explained. "Substantial monthly contributions for the past 3 years. We've always assumed it was someone with deep pockets and deeper appreciation for marine conservation." Natalie looked puzzled. I thought that funding came from government grants. Only partially. The anonymous donations have been our primary source of operational funding. Torres pulled up financial records on his computer. Someone who signs their contributions as Ocean's Guardian. Romantic, isn't it? Sebastian's chest tightened. 3 years ago was when he'd begun his careful plan to go legitimate, secretly funneling money from his art forgery profits into conservation causes. Dmitri had discovered the donations and was using them as another pressure point. That evening, Sebastian brought Natalie to his penthouse, hoping the familiar surroundings would help him find courage to tell her the truth. The apartment was a masterpiece of understated luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the Sound. This is beautiful, Natalie breathed, moving toward a collection of artifacts displayed in custom cases. Are these from your gallery? Private collection, Sebastian said carefully. Pieces too valuable for public display. Natalie examined a delicate jade figurine, then moved to a series of ancient maritime instruments. Her expression grew thoughtful as she studied a particular compass, its brass surface etched with unusual markings. Sebastian, she said slowly, this compass, I've seen it before, in a maritime museum catalog. It was reported stolen from the Vancouver Maritime Museum 2 years ago. The truth surfaces. Sebastian's private island retreat lay 30 miles off the Washington coast, accessible only by helicopter or private yacht. He'd brought Natalie here with the intention of confessing everything in a place where they could speak freely, away from Dimitri's watching eyes. The modernist glass house perched on granite cliffs offered breathtaking views of the Pacific, but the beauty felt hollow as Sebastian prepared to destroy the trust of the only woman who'd ever made him want to be better. This is incredible, Natalie said as they walked along the private beach. Despite her suspicions about the compass, she'd agreed to come, perhaps hoping for explanations that would restore her faith in him. How long have you owned this place? 5 years, Sebastian replied, watching her collect interesting shells and sea glass. I bought it when I needed somewhere to think, to plan a different future. Different from what? Sebastian stopped walking, the weight of his secrets crushing down on him like deep ocean pressure. Natalie, what I'm about to tell you will change everything between us, but you deserve the truth. Before he could continue, the sound of helicopter rotors echoed across the water. Sebastian's blood froze. Only 3 people knew the location of his island, and he'd told no one about this visit. Expecting company? Natalie asked, shading her eyes as she watched a black helicopter approach their landing pad. Get to the house, Sebastian ordered, his voice sharp with panic. Lock yourself in the safe room behind the master bedroom bookshelf. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Sebastian, what's happening? You're scaring me. The compass isn't the only stolen piece in my collection, he said rapidly as the helicopter landed. My name isn't the only identity I've used, and the man getting out of that helicopter is the reason I've been trying to disappear for 7 years. 3 men emerged from the aircraft. The leader was tall and lean, with prematurely silver hair and pale blue eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of his surroundings. Marcus Reed moved with the fluid grace of a predator, his expensive suit unable to conceal the violence that radiated from him like heat from flames. The famous ghost, Marcus called out as he approached the beach. Dmitri sends his regards from his new accommodations. Federal prison proved temporary. Sebastian positioned himself between Marcus and Natalie. Our business is with Dmitri. Leave her out of this. Oh, but she's already very much involved, Marcus smiled, pulling out a tablet. Dr. Natalie Chen, marine biologist, daughter of Dr. Patricia Chen, whose medical research facility has been receiving anonymous donations for 3 years. Donations that originated from accounts linked to forged Renaissance paintings sold to private collectors in Monaco. Natalie's face went white. What is he talking about? Your boyfriend is Sebastian Blackwood to his gallery clients, But to those of us in more exclusive circles, he's known as the Ghost. The most sought-after art forger in the world, Marcus explained with obvious pleasure. Though former might be more accurate since he's been trying to go legitimate. That's impossible, Natalie whispered. But her eyes searched Sebastian's face and found confirmation in his expression. Show her the real collection, Marcus instructed his associates, who produced photographs of Sebastian's private vault. The images revealed dozens of masterpieces reported missing from museums worldwide. Monet water lilies from the gardener, museum theft, Van Gogh sketches from the Amsterdam job, and this lovely Degas dancer that disappeared from a private collector in Paris last year. Sebastian felt his carefully constructed world crumbling like an underwater cliff face. I never stole those pieces directly. I created forgeries to replace originals that were already missing. Semantics, Marcus laughed. The FBI doesn't appreciate such fine distinctions. Neither does Dimitri, who spent 7 years in federal prison while you lived in luxury, funding marine biology research with his money. The money was earned from my legitimate gallery sales, Sebastian protested, but even he knew how hollow the words sounded. Legitimate sales of forged pieces to unsuspecting collectors, Marcus corrected. Your talent for recreating brushstrokes is remarkable, but your business model remains fundamentally criminal. Natalie stumbled backward, her scientific mind processing the implications. The anonymous donations to my mother's research facility. They came from stolen art? Forged art, Sebastian said desperately. I was trying to use the money for good, to support causes that mattered. You used blood money to fund my life's work, Natalie said, her voice breaking. Everything I've accomplished, every breakthrough we've made in coral restoration, was built on lies and theft. Marcus watched their exchange with satisfaction. Dimitri was quite specific about his requirements. He wants his former partner to understand the true cost of betrayal. Dr. Chen's research facility will be shut down within the week unless Sebastian returns to the family business. I won't go back to forging, Sebastian said firmly. Then you'll watch everything you've built crumble, Marcus replied, signaling to his associates. Starting with the people you've grown fond of. One of the men produced a photograph of Dr. Patricia Chen leaving her medical research building. Such a dedicated woman, working late nights to develop treatments for ocean toxin poisoning. It would be tragic if something happened to someone so devoted to helping others. Natalie lunged toward Marcus, fury overriding her fear. Don't you dare threaten my mother, Sebastian caught her arm, pulling her back. Don't give them an excuse. Smart advice, Marcus agreed. You have 48 hours to decide, Ghost. Return to work or watch your new life disappear one piece at a time. And Dr. Chen? He turned to Natalie with mock courtesy. Your research facility's funding will be permanently terminated unless you convince your boyfriend to see reason. As the helicopter lifted off, leaving Sebastian and Natalie alone on the beach. The silence between them felt deeper than any ocean trench. The truth had finally surfaced, and like many things brought up from the depths, it was ugly and dangerous in the light of day. Everything between us has been a lie, Natalie said finally. Not everything, Sebastian replied, but when he reached for her hand, she pulled away. My mother could lose everything because of me, because I fell for a criminal. Sebastian stared out at the darkening ocean, knowing that the woman he loved now saw him as clearly as he saw himself, a man whose past had poisoned everything he touched, including the one pure thing he'd found in 7 years of living in shadows. Behind. The Crown. A Love Story of Secrets Part 4. The Depths of Deception. The FBI safe house in downtown Seattle felt like a sterile prison compared to Sebastian's island retreat. Agent Rivera, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who specialized in art crimes, sat across from Natalie at a metal table covered with photographs and case files. Dr. Chen, your cooperation could help us bring down the largest art forgery network on the West Coast, Agent Rivera explained, sliding a photo of Sebastian across the table. The man you know as Sebastian Blackwood has been on our watch list for 3 years. Natalie stared at the surveillance photos showing Sebastian entering various galleries, meeting with collectors, examining paintings with a jeweler's loupe. You've been watching him this entire time? We suspected his gallery was laundering money through art sales, but we needed proof. Your relationship with him gives us an opportunity to gather evidence from the inside. You want me to spy on him, Natalie said flatly. We want you to help us save him, Agent Rivera corrected. Sebastian Blackwood may be the ghost, but our investigation suggests he's been trying to go legitimate. The anonymous donations to marine conservation, the reduced forgery activity, his attempts to return stolen pieces to museums through intermediaries. Natalie's head spun with conflicting emotions. Those donations funded my life's work. Everything I've accomplished was still accomplished by you, Agent Rivera insisted. The source of funding doesn't diminish your scientific breakthroughs, but we need Sebastian's cooperation to take down Dmitry Volkov's network completely. Before Natalie could respond, Agent Rivera's phone buzzed urgently. Her face went pale as she listened to the caller. When? How many guards were injured? What's happening? Natalie demanded. Dmitry Volkov escaped during a prison transfer 20 minutes ago. 3 guards are in critical condition, and a federal transport vehicle is missing. Agent Rivera stood quickly. Dr. Chen, we need to move you to a more secure location immediately. What about my mother? We've sent agents to her facility, but... Agent Rivera hesitated. She never arrived at work this morning. Her car was found abandoned in the hospital parking garage. Natalie's world tilted. You're telling me that while I was sitting here deciding whether to help you, Dmitry kidnapped my mother? We're doing everything possible to locate her, but Sebastian is our best chance of getting inside Dmitry's network. If you can convince him to cooperate, he'll do anything to protect the people he cares about, Natalie realized, understanding Sebastian's impossible position with painful clarity. Agent Rivera's phone rang again. This time she put it on speaker. Sebastian Blackwood? Agent Rivera. Sebastian's voice carried exhaustion and desperation. I assume you know about Dr. Patricia Chen by now? Rising to the surface. The underwater museum Sebastian had built was a marvel of engineering and artistry, constructed within a natural underwater cave system 30 feet below the Pacific's surface. Glass-walled chambers connected by pressurized tunnels housed dozens of masterpieces in climate-controlled environments, each piece accompanied by placards detailing their theft, forgery, and planned return to their rightful owners. Natalie descended in diving gear alongside FBI agents, her marine biology training making her the ideal guide through the underwater approach. Through the crystal-clear water, she could see Sebastian waiting in the main gallery chamber, his silhouette outlined against the soft lighting that illuminated priceless works of art. Visual confirmation on the target, Agent Rivera's voice, crackled through the underwater communication system. Dr. Chen, remember your mother's safety depends on this operation going smoothly. I understand, Natalie replied, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Dr. Patricia Chen was being held somewhere in the museum complex, and Dmitry had made it clear that any aggressive moves would result in her immediate execution. Sebastian turned as Natalie entered the main chamber through the airlock. Even through his diving mask, she could see the relief and fear warring in his green eyes. I'm sorry, he mouthed silently, knowing FBI agents were monitoring their conversation. Touching reunion, Dmitry Volkov's voice echoed through the chamber's speaker system. Though I must say, Ghost, your underwater gallery is quite impressive. A fitting monument to our partnership. Dmitry emerged from a side chamber, his pale blue eyes taking in every detail of Sebastian's creation. He'd aged during his imprisonment, his silver hair now completely white, but his predatory intelligence remained sharp as broken glass. Where is Dr. Chen? Sebastian demanded, his voice steady despite the wire concealed beneath his diving suit. "Safe, for now. Though I must admit, she's been quite vocal about her daughter's choice in men." Dmitri gestured toward the displayed artwork. "Tell me, do you remember this Picasso sketch? The one we liberated from that private collector in Barcelona?" "I remember you killing the night watchman who surprised us," Sebastian replied coldly. "I remember deciding that night that I wanted out." "Sentiment makes men weak," Dmitri observed, moving closer to Natalie. "Your marine biologist here, for instance. Does she know about the Van Gogh you forged for her mother's medical research funding? The one that funded Dr. Patricia Chen's breakthrough cancer treatments?" Natalie's blood ran cold. "What?" "Oh, yes, my dear. Your mother's facility didn't just receive anonymous donations. Sebastian specifically commissioned forgeries to be sold, with proceeds directed to cancer research. Quite personal, really." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Leave her out of this, Dmitri." "Why cancer research, Ghost?" Dmitri pressed, circling them like a shark. "What made that cause so important to Sebastian Blackwood?" "My parents didn't die in a car accident," Sebastian said quietly, his eyes fixed on Natalie. "My mother died of cancer when I was 25. My father started the forgery operation to pay for experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover." "And when the treatments failed," Dmitri prompted, "he couldn't stop. The debt, the connections, the network he'd built. It all became self-perpetuating. By the time he died, I'd inherited an empire I never wanted." Natalie felt her understanding of Sebastian shift like tectonic plates beneath the ocean floor. Every piece of the puzzle, the anonymous donations, his attempt to go legitimate, his desperate need to return stolen art, suddenly formed a coherent picture of a man trying to transform inherited guilt into something meaningful. "How touching," Dmitri sneered. "Unfortunately, your redemption arc ends here. I've planted enough explosives in this underwater tomb to turn it into a real grave. You have 5 minutes to wire transfer $50 million to my offshore accounts, or we all become permanent residents of the deep." "The FBI is already surrounding the area," Sebastian warned. "Let them come. They'll find nothing but debris and bodies." Dmitri pulled out a detonator. "Though I might be persuaded to spare the women if you agree to return to our partnership permanently." "There's another option," Natalie said suddenly, her mind racing through calculations. "The cave system this museum is built in connects to a series of thermal vents about 200 meters north. If we could trigger a controlled collapse in the right location—" "You want to flood the chamber?" Sebastian realized. "Not flood, redirect. The thermal vents create upward currents strong enough to carry us to the surface quickly, but only if we time it precisely." Natalie turned to Dmitri. "You want to destroy everything? Fine. But you won't control how it happens." Dmitri's eyes narrowed. "What are you proposing?" "A race to the surface. You, Sebastian, and me. First one up wins everything. Your freedom, my mother's life, the entire art collection. Lose, and the ocean decides your fate." "Dr. Chen," Agent Rivera's voice crackled through the hidden communication system. "What are you doing?" Natalie ignored the warning, focusing on Dmitri's competitive nature. "Unless you're afraid you can't outswim a marine biologist and a reformed art forger?" Dmitri laughed, but his pale eyes showed interest. "And if I win, you get Sebastian, the art, and a 30-minute head start before the FBI moves in." Natalie lied smoothly. "Natalie, no," Sebastian warned, but she was already moving toward the chamber's emergency release. "The thermal vents will create chaotic currents," she explained quickly. "Stay close to me, and when I give the signal, swim directly upward as fast as you can." Dmitri activated his detonator, and the underwater museum began to collapse in a controlled sequence of explosions. Water rushed through the breached chambers as Natalie triggered the emergency systems that would redirect the flow toward the thermal vents. The three of them were swept into the powerful current as the cave system transformed into an underwater tornado. Dmitri, despite his age, was a strong swimmer, but he fought against the current instead of using it. Sebastian followed Natalie's lead, trusting her knowledge of underwater dynamics. As they spiraled upward through the thermal vent system, Natalie saw FBI divers waiting at strategic points. She'd been counting on their positioning, knowing that Agent Rivera would have backup plans within backup plans. Dimitri broke the surface first, gasping and disoriented by the chaotic ascent. FBI agents immediately surrounded him, but he still clutched a backup detonator. "Dr. Patricia Chen!" he snarled as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "You'll never find her body." "We already have," Agent Rivera announced, surfacing nearby. "She's safe aboard our rescue vessel, along with Marcus Reed and the rest of your organization. We've been tracking your communications for weeks." As Sebastian and Natalie floated together in the Pacific swells, watching Dimitri being taken into custody, the sun broke through the clouds above them. The underwater museum was gone, along with the art collection that had defined Sebastian's criminal past. But somehow the loss felt like liberation rather than destruction. "Your mother's research will continue," Sebastian said quietly, treading water beside her. "I've already transferred my legitimate assets to establish a permanent endowment." "And you?" Natalie asked, studying his face in the golden sunlight. "Agent Rivera offered me a consulting position with the FBI's Art Crimes Unit. Apparently, reformed criminals make excellent advisors for catching current ones." Natalie smiled, reaching for his hand beneath the water. "The ocean has a way of washing things clean." "Is that your professional opinion, Dr. Chen?" "It's my personal experience," she replied, pulling him closer. "Sometimes you have to dive deep to find what's worth surfacing for." As rescue boats approached, and their new life together began to take shape above the waves, Sebastian realized that some treasures were worth more than any masterpiece, and some secrets, once brought to light, became the foundation for something infinitely more valuable than the shadows they'd replaced.